please join me in welcoming Mr. Mustafa Njai to give us his take on the business environment. Thank you.
Thank you, Honorable Benjamin. And without going through the protocols again, thank you for joining us today to deliberate on some of these very important topics. I will tell you, I didn't prepare a text as such. Me, I'm a builder. I don't do what you do. I make things happen. So I was just looking at the folder that I was working on yesterday with some facts, so we can work on this, on positively how we can just move ahead. And in this deliberation, since I'm the first speaker, I would want to appeal to everybody that let us be positive. Let us not start any blame game here. I would rather us look at what we can do to positively change the business environment. And in doing so, simply we all know that in anything that you do in life, in any industry, you are ranked. There is a body that ranks anything that you do, be it, let's say, sports, for example. FIFA ranks all the nations, coming down all the way to the African level, our regional level. So you are ranked, and everybody wants to be ranked at the very top. It's a very competitive world. And today, in the business environment, we are ranked the most, reliable ranking body is the World Bank. And the World Bank rank all the nations, and they give out reports. And every year, reports are given, and then countries are ranked. So I will just start by referring you to the World Bank Business Ranking Report for last year, 2018. And then let's now look at where we were last year and this year. And I will tell you, if you haven't looked at this, last year, 2018, the Gambia was ranked about 123 or 125. What is important that we have dropped? We have dropped 3 points. Instead of moving up, we are dropping. Now let us compare ourselves with other African countries and see what they're doing. Where are the countries that are doing well? Because we belong not only to this globe, but to the continent and then the sub-region. All of us as countries, we look out for investors, foreign or local direct investments. And these are some of the facts that they will look into to put their money in there. And we all need this. So I would want to highlight, for example, a country like Djibouti. I looked at 2018 and 2019. Djibouti jumped about almost 50 points. 50 points. From 154, they were around 154 in the globe, and today they are 99. And then Mauritius has always topped the list. Actually, I had all this written and analyzed, but unfortunately I left it at home. I was rushing coming. And then Rwanda. Rwanda has maintained number 2 in Africa, because what I did was I looked at the globe. If you look at the ranking, it's at the global level. But then I tried to analyze at the African level, which are the countries that are doing well. So Rwanda is improving at the global level, but has maintained its ranking at the African level. There are 10 countries actually that have improved, their ranking. Senegal is one of them. Ghana is one of them. But instead we are dropping down. So what I think we need to do as a country, and that's why I asked for a flipboard. I like writing. As we continue with our deliberation, because I think it should be interactive. So let us not start blaming, the government didn't do this, that's why they did this, So please, in our deliberation, let's try and come up on positive things and what we think we should do to improve our ranking. And once we improve our ranking, seriously, we will see inflows coming in. As an investor, we've invested in different countries, and that's what we look for. Now, the first thing that you would do is you do a SWOT analysis, which is the strength, weakness, and opportunities and threats. So I think as a country, how we are going to do it, I think this body needs to come out with suggestions that, look, we think between the public and private sector, these are the things that we need to do. Let us first address what our weaknesses are, what our strengths are as a country. I'm not going into detail. Maybe we'll discuss it as the deliberation goes on. Then two, what our weaknesses are. These are realities. You cannot play around with it. Don't go around, for example, when they do investment promotion, telling you, oh, the Gambia, yes, we are small in nature by 2 million, but we have access to a 450 million sub-region. Why do I need to come to Gambia if I'm heading to Nigeria? I might as well land in Lagos. So please, those are the things that we should not be saying anymore, because we are not accessible. So that's a weakness. One of our weaknesses, we are small as a size. In size, we are only 2 million. So that's a weakness. But at times you can capitalize on your weakness to make it a strength. But I will leave it to the floor to discuss it. Then, what are the opportunities? We know we are very strong in tourism, leisure, so services. So we had a bigger disappointment, I'm sure all of us here, about 2 weeks ago when we found out from far that it wasn't what we thought. So that's an opportunity that we lost. Then the threats, what the threats are. So I think in these discussions, that's what I would like us to see. And then once we've done this, I have learned recently from some journalist training that we need to apply the 3 W's and an H. I guess some will know what this means. What is it? What is it we're discussing? We're discussing about our business environment. So that's what the first W, I guess, should be. But we can discuss and agree on it. Then, when. We need to now have a target. Our target is probably, let's say, in the next 1 year, let's have a target that, look, we want to be ranked, since we are 128 or so, 129, let's target at least being ranked 100. We have to have a target. Anybody who doesn't have a target or doesn't have a vision in anything you do in life, you're starting in the wrong footing. So I think by the time we get out of here, I think we should resolve that, look, we want to be by next year at this ranking. Then the second one is where? That's the ranking, actually. The last one is how we are going to do it. How we are going to do it, if I deliberate a bit further, I think at the level of the chamber, we had engaged a consultant who had worked for the World Bank. That's Mr. Barry. That, look, probably if we go into very little details on how to improve our business environment, we'll be ranked higher. So, as a start, I was asked to speak for 5 minutes. I love to respect a time. And since it's going to be interactive, I think that's where I would like to stop. I don't want to start going into details. I beg that let's not start blaming government. Let us not have a divider in this room here. Blaming the government, and the government start blaming the private sector. But let us collectively, as a country where we are today, look at solutions that can move us in our business ranking. So I will not go into details, because if we go into details, I will tell you of how I find it difficult to get the land, and then how I was trying to get financing, and we've had that over and over and over again. I am glad and happy that the hall look full. So on that note, Mr. Moderator, thank you very much, and my fellow panelists. And obviously, I will take questions as we move on, and hope that we can deliberate positively and finish on time. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Mr. Mustafa Njai. I think what we'll do, we'll keep on the business environment, and we'll make it interactive, and we will take questions from the floor. These things are really... so who would want to go first? Let me just give a brief overview in terms of Taf's presentation. He's made some very important points in terms of the 3 W's and the R. When, where, what, and then how. So I think if we're going to discuss, let's try and focus those discussions on those. The business environment. What are we talking about? The business environment. Where do we want to be? What ranking do we want to have? When do we want to have that, an improvement in whatever our current ranking is, and how are we going to do it? And he's made a very important point. Let's not blame government. You blame government, they become defensive. So the best way is to engage them in order for us to move to where we want to move to. So we would start on that note. Any questions? I see, okay, Papa, we'll start with Papa.
Hello?
Yeah.
Okay. Thank you, Honorable. My name is Papa Yusuf Njai. I'm the CEO of the Uni Group and Chairman of Access Bank. And I want to follow up from what Taf has said. I think a couple of months ago we were interviewed by the FATU Network. And I think this topic was brought up, the issue of Gambia's ranking on the Doing Business report. And I like the sort of impetus that Taf has talked about, that we should now talk about solutions rather than the problems, because we all know the problems. And I want to believe that for the ranking to be better than what it is, every country that Taf has talked about, whether it's Djibouti and Rwanda and all, Senegal and all the others, what was common in all of them was reform. In as much as we are not here to blame government, but I want to believe that a business environment, the government has a big role to play in a business environment. It is not the private sector that makes the rules for business. We influence. So for Gambia's case, I think it is very, very important that we look at critical reforms. There are many, many areas. But I think as an entrepreneur, the area that we need to quickly reform is the area of investments. Because we are faced with multiple channels of investment when you come into this country. You are frustrated at the end of the day because nobody tells you a yes or a no. And I think there needs to be a streamlining of the business investment process, because you cannot create businesses if you do not invest. And if you want to invest, you go to the authorities that are responsible for investment. Some investment needs incentives, others need land and other things, as staff says. But the current challenge you have is there are multiple layers of investment doors. So investors are confused. So at the end of the day, nothing gets done. I can tell you the amount of people who've come, and as staff said, we're a small country. That could be a weakness, but it could also be a strength. But when you have proper investment companies come and they're frustrated, what you get is what happened in the old regime. You now get fly-by-night investors who just come and just accept anything. So I want to believe that the business environment reform should start with a proper investment code that tells the investor, go to JIPA. If you go to JIPA, you will get this, you will get that, you will get that. You will get a decision at least. But currently, you don't get a decision. You don't even get letters replied to. You have to follow up. Emails don't get replied to. And I think this is the beginning. So that is just one reform. I could go on and on about tax reform and others, but I'll give a chance for others to talk. I want to believe that the investment codes need to be revised so that at the end of the day, you have this one-stop shop. If you go to Rwanda, which many of us have, a CEO just came from the RDB, it is true that you can go in, 8 o'clock by midday, you have your business registration. In the Gambia, yes, they tell you, but that's not the case. You cannot have that. So I want to believe that we must respect the investment codes that we have on paper and streamline so that the investor can go to one place and get everything they need. We understand some decisions take longer, but those decisions need to be decided on and not just left up in the air. Thank you.
Good morning, Mr. Njai, Mr. Jagana, and other panelists. There is a phenomenon that I've noticed in this country that I want to share with you. And I think it will be under one of the your SWOT analysis. To me, I think it's a major weakness. The country is very good in investment promotion. You have ministers, GAIPA, tourism, flying all over, trying to bring in investor. But once an investor comes here, we don't know what to do with the investor. And most of them get frustrated and go. And there's this issue of uncertainty. And that is one thing business hates. Business they want to know what to do in the next 5 years. But now we see the phenomenon of government taking unilateral decisions that affect affects the existence of certain businesses. A particular example would be the tourism tax, which just came out of nowhere and is threatening the tourism industry. So we really need to look at, when investors come in this country, how do we handle them? We are very good at going out and trying to bring them in. But once they come in, we don't know what to do with them. I think we need to address that. I think it's a major weakness.
Yeah, I am the general manager, Better Future Production. Better Future Production is a multimedia and IT consulting firm. We are recently into the market. We were here before 4 years ago, but due to some bureaucracies and some other issues, we have stopped operation, but we have resumed now. It's just a follow-up question to Papa Yusuf Njai's question. And I believe as a student, doing business have parameters, and then as a business body responsible for helping the business community, we need to first look at these parameters, develop concept note or strategy as a basis of our negotiation with the government. If we put it on paper and show it to government that this is what we need to do in order to improve the business community, then we will use that strategy as a basis of negotiation. Because as you said, government will always be on defensive side. But if we can put it and negotiate with them, surely we will able to have something on it. And then the second point that I think we can use is that we should be able to convince the government to look for investment inwards than outward. There are Gambians who are interested, who are willing, able, want to invest, but they need certain support and then help from the government. If government is able to give them the support, then they will be able to invest well. So I think this is what we need to push with the government. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, we will take the end over there, Mr. Juve, and then after, then after Mr. Juve. Would you like to go ahead.
Hello, my name is Halimas Job, and I like to consider myself Gambian first and businessman second. I am currently the managing director of Atlas Energy, so the big blue petrol stations that you see in the country. And I just wanted us to maybe tailor the conversation a little bit more. I know Gambia, one of our major problems that we have is we have a very youthful population. This is something that's important to me because I'm also a youth. And I believe that when we talk about making the business environment more conducive, that it's also very important that we make it more favorable for businesses that create added value in this country to be able to succeed. Businesses that, for example, will create more employment within our country should be much, much easier for them to be able to succeed in this country. And I don't think there's enough value that's put on that today. And I think that a lot of people that are coming in and investing in the Gambia today are investing, and sometimes I even consider them briefcase investors. Pretty much people that will come, make a lot of money off of the country, and walk out without creating any value for Gambians themselves. So when we sit down here, I just want us to really think about how do we support businesses that support the greater population of this country and that actually create value for our country as we move forward. That's all I wanted to add.
Okay, thank you. Mr. Juve?
Thank you. My name is Suleiman M. Juve, the proprietor of SM Juve Agency, a board member and Secretary General of Association of Customs Agents. Now, contributing to what Mr. Njai said with regards to the issues affecting Gambian business as well as the World Bank ranking and so forth, I think the problem we have in this country is all about implementation. All the issues that affect our business, our World Bank ranking, have been identified time and time again, documented by government, Ministry of Trade in meetings, forums. Even currently they are doing study with regards to Gambia's ranking, what are the issues. But at the end of the day, cabinet papers will be done. It has been done time and time again, but no action is taken. If you look at the World Bank doing business, you have issues of trading across borders, the business environment, registration of companies, all these things. I mean, we know our problems, but who is taking the responsibility to make sure that these reforms, take place? That is the question we need to ask ourselves. Who is responsible? Government needs to take its stand. We're not blaming government, but when you identify problems and where government should take action, and action is not taken, so at the end of the day, we have to blame government. Private sector can identify their problems, challenges, and we look forward to government to do some reforms. So the issue is trying to implement some of the issues that have been identified that is affecting Gambian business. Thank you.
Okay, yes? Moderate.
Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullah. Thank you very much. My name is Mohammed Hassan Loom. I'm the head of programs for the CRC. This is a very interesting panel for me because I was once a private person. I was working in a bank. I've moved into projects, government projects for many, many years. And I've been participating in what we call the Project Managers Forum, organized by the Ministry of Finance. And a lot of issues have been documented. And really, yes, we do have a problem. The W's that you just presented, I think you should include a Y. Because for any gap analysis, it's important for you to know a why. Because there's evaluation criteria that the World Bank would use. So you need to know what are these criteria. Because if we meet them, then definitely they would say, okay, we rank this. But if we do not meet them, then we drop. The World Bank, the EU, all of these, they have what they call the budget support triggers. Triggers that would make you go up or that would make you fall. And I think you should really take note. The young gentleman had said something very important. Investors would come to make money, but they would not really add value or train young people, so we would not really have ownership of these businesses. And really also, Gambian businessmen, entrepreneur, you've been in the system. We are here as students because we're going to learn from you. But you should really also look inwardly before you look outwardly. And one thing I would always say to myself first and to everybody, we do not promote our own. Gambians would establish businesses, but Gambians would not go to these businesses that are owned by Gambians. Gambians have opened restaurants, but Gambians do not go to these Gambian-owned restaurants. Sorry, I'm not being racist or anything. But when you go to Lebanese-owned restaurants, you see Gambians going there multiple times to patronize these businesses. GCCI would organize trade fairs, Gambians, but you would see the turnout. We do not patronize them. We even bargain with our own Gambian brothers that own businesses. But when we go to other, foreign businesses, we do not bargain, we pay up straight up. So really, I think we should look inwardly, and we should be very truthful with ourselves. So when we say we want to assist Gambia, it starts with us. And I say this, we are all government. We elect government. So in a way, you're responsible for if government performs or does not perform. So let's start. And this is a very good forum because the CRC is here. All of these things has a constitutionality bearing. We're talking about reforms, we're talking about laws, we're talking about codes, but this has to be fitted into the constitution, the new constitution being drafted. So all what you're saying here is very important, and it needs to see itself in the new constitution. Thank you.
Yes, I'm Dele Jones, FJP, Development and Management Consultants. I think the last comment is probably the most hard-hitting. That is the constitution and the business environment. The two are intrinsically linked. In particular, the role of government, what government does in the economy, and the extent to which it sucks up resources in doing that. So I think the two are very linked. The reason why I say that is that the businesses cannot get access to finance when government is actually using that finance. And unless we define what the role of government is to make sure that government access and use of finance does not prevent the private sector gaining access to finance or being able to do its work effectively, then government will effectively crowd out the private sector from business. And all of what we're talking will be academic. Nothing will happen, right? In most African countries, the cost of finance is usurious. It's 10, 15, 20%. No economy can survive that way. And the reason why that happens is because government borrows too much money. And when government borrows too much money, the private sector cannot access finance. Right? The other point which I think is useful to point out is the period which we're looking over. It was pointed out that some countries have improved dramatically over a year. Well, you cannot, in substance, improve dramatically over a year. It takes a number of years of sustained effort to have real change, right? So we should not be thinking about getting change within 1 year or 18 months. Change has to be sustained over 5 to 10 years to see the results. You see what has happened in Rwanda, Mauritius? It is 5, 10, 15, 20 years of sustained reforms. Also, what we should be looking at is very important. We're looking at the doing business reforms. Yes, that's useful, but it's very limited in its scope. It is better to look at measures of competitiveness, which the World Economic Forum looks at, right? Because that covers not just doing business, it includes human capital, your product markets, your macroeconomic role, which falls by the government's issues, and innovation, etc., right? So it's very important that we look at the right indicator, which is a system-wide indicator like competitiveness rather than just by just looking at doing business, which is very narrow. It's important that we don't see things as a quick fix. There should be multi-year, 10, 20-year programs. It also is important that the constitutional element of what the government does and reducing government to doing what it does best, which would be setting standards and policing standards and not getting involved in production. Because when government wants to get involved in production, it messes it up. And then it uses all the capital that should go to the private sector, and the private sector is limited. Right? And also, we should not be looking inward. Lee Kuan Yew in the early 60s came to Africa because he had a small country, a city-state, and he was looking for an economic hinterland. And he came as far as Africa to look for people to do business with. So if you just want to develop a country, just looking at what you have in your country, looking inward, you don't get any development. We should be asking the question, when are we going to get a situation where when you register a company in Gambia, it is recognized immediately in Sierra Leone, it is recognized immediately in Lagos. We've been talking about this since 1978 with ECOWAS, but nothing has happened. You're not going to get development based on 2 million people. You have to have an economic hinterland. And for that, you have to look outward. And funny enough, and now just my closing point, Gambians are excellent in practice at looking outwards. You go to Angola, I've been to Madagascar, I've been to several countries, and I've seldom been anywhere where there's not a Gambian doing business. So in practice, Gambians go out, right? But what we need to do is have an environment here and at the national level and at the regional level which encourages these sort of things so that we have not just an economy for 2 million, but we really do have an economy for 400 million. Thank you.
Thank you very much. That's the last point that will bring this session to a close before we hand the mic to Mr. Mustafa Njai. But quickly, I host the Business and Economy program, and incidentally, we had spoken on the business environment. And I remember the guest that I had, I asked the question in terms of, you see, when you go to Senegal, when the IMF visits Senegal or the World Bank visits Senegal, or any of the people that do these rankings, Senegal manages that process. In the Gambia, when the IMF comes, the IMF is at liberty to go and talk to whoever, and we all talk differently. So we need to coordinate our efforts. Yeah? We need to be providing the same information and the same data. Why does the IMF go to multiple institutions to discuss the same issues that is discussed at each and every single institution? It is done to compare and to be able to ascertain what is the reality in vis-a-vis what is being told, the respective parameters that they look at. So we talk of the how. How do we improve our business environment ranking? Perhaps that could be a starting point. Is there a need for an agency in this country or an institution that would coordinate, Chamber of Commerce, GAIPA, Ministry of Finance, the Gambia Tourism Board, all of the institutions that are relevant in terms of these doing business parameters? Should we begin to coordinate so that we at least say the same things rather than you come to the GT board, I tell you, oh, tourism contributes 16% to GDP. You go to Gambia Bureau of Statistics and they say, no, it's actually way less, it's 10%. That's the starting point. So perhaps a point for Mr. Mustafa Njai to take note, and Mr. Mustafa Njai will hand you over the floor to talk. Yes, please.
Okay, thank you very much, Ben. I guess I think it's been interesting. But I'll just go back to the different points that were deliberated by the various contributors, starting first with Mr. Njai Papa about business reform. I mean, I'm not here to give you the answers. Actually, I think some of us know, we all know the answers already. But what I think the problem is that there is an agency or there are agencies that has been established by act of parliament. So today in this country, when it comes to investment promotion or anything to do with investment, the one stop is at GAIPA. But what we saw in the last regime, that it was hijacked by the president's office. And there's been a continuation. So really, our point here should be that how do we influence positively to change this? To say it out loud, to do whatever is necessary as business operators, that look, we need to have a one-stop shop. I think the job has been done already. Like if you want to do any business in this country, the place to go is to GAIPA. And you know, everything has been well stipulated there in terms of investment codes, incentives, everything is there. So again, on how we should do it, I'll fast track and come to Ben's point, that we need to probably work on, I love using influencing, you know, because at times we are limited on what we can do, to influence the coordinating body. We need to be recognized. I mean, I think recently government established some committee of doing business, and the main players, the main players, that is us, the private operators, we are not well represented. So these are the things I think we need to come out of here. Whatever has been said here, I will not really go back on all these points, but we need to find a way of being relevant. That will again probably involve the youth, you know, local content, which the president will talk about. But I think for me, that's the takeaway I would like to see from here. That how and when do we establish, you know, a coordinating body where we are relevant? We saw recently in Senegal, for example, I don't know whether you saw it, the local big business players like the Sedimas, the Youssou Ndours and others, they came together actually as a force, as a very strong lobby. Had a meeting with the president to show them who they were and what they contribute in the economy, and that they want to be recognized. Then they went around, actually, they didn't even stop there. They went out to all, you know, in Senegal, religion contributes a lot. You know, so they went to all the Halifas. But in essence, all they were trying to do is to make sure that as local players and for who they represent, they must be taken on board. My friend FJP, I agree with you on the long-term planning, but I want to generalize in Africa. It's very difficult in Africa to plan beyond a political term. So for me, as an investor, and I've seen this over and over again, as an investor, I would like to tackle things on a quick fix. What can we do? Simple things that we can do to improve, whether it's done by the World Economic Forum or the World Bank, but just to improve our business ranking, regardless of which institution uses it or the parameters being used. So I would just close by aligning myself with Ben, the moderator, that we need to find a body. We need to come out of this hall today and say, look, the Chamber of Commerce, as the voice of the private sector, we must be in these decision-making bodies. We're happy that the National Business Council, you know, has been formed, and we're having our inaugural meeting on Saturday, and this is really high level. We've got the president should chair it, together with 5 ministers and 5 members of the private sector. So I hope whatever we can get from here, probably it will help to form part of our agenda. So on that note, I thank you very much again. Thank you.